Right, in this lecture we're gonna start getting into the things for the semester. New material, so we're in chapter 21, which introduces the cal active participle. And my struggles with getting us to actually read the text in our online meetings are well documented. So what I'm going to do, just at least for this time, and we'll see if it continues, I just want to take some time to read this text. This is from Genesis 15. And go through it, and maybe you can pause the video now and try and practice reading it yourself, or pause it along the way and read along. But so I'm just going to take some time to read this. So here we have achar chadavarim ha'ele. Now, real quick, notice again that there are these accents. These are munas, and there's an accent up here, and they're on the syllable that is accented, that is stressed as we read through it. So that helps me as I go through knowing what to pronounce. Haya devar Adonai. So notice that this word doesn't have an accent because it's in construct with this word. And so remember how we said in construct, a noun loses or at least loosens its accent. So here we have the accent. And so that tells the reader quickly go through here. So devar Adonai El Avram ba machazeh. Just so you know, this little accent is called a meteg. It's the one I was struggling to remember the other day. It means the word for bridle. You slow a horse down. So it's telling me slow down when you read this. So it's ba machazeh. Lemor al tira Avram anochi magin lach. Shekarcha charabe me'od. Vayomer Avram. These next two words are a little tricky because normally, so here we have the divine name, and I would tell you to pronounce it as Adonai, but here we have Adonai, and so you could say Adonai, Adonai. In the Jewish tradition, we would substitute then Adonai Elohim, so Lord God at that point. So that's how I'm going to read it. Adonai Elohim ma titen li va'anochi cholech ariri uben meshech beti hu damasek Eliezer. So here again the accent is on this segol, so that tells me what to stress there. So just those two verses. We don't have a ton of time just to keep going, but hopefully that's just some help on reading, and we'll continue to try and get to that on our online sessions. So the purpose of this class or this lecture is to introduce to you Hebrew active participles. They're pretty fun, they're pretty common, and so we'll get into this. So participles are verbal adjectives. So they kind of sit on the edge between a verb and an adjective. Sometimes in other grammars they're called verbal nouns, but I'm going to use adjectives because they end up describing another noun. So they are a verb conjugation, but then they actually, the way that they're used and their form takes stuff from adjectives as well. As a verb conjugation, it's a non-finite conjugation. So remember, finite conjugations that we've learned so far are the perfect and the imperfect. And both of these are marked for person, gender, and number. And so this makes finite, limits the who can be the referent of these verbs. Non-finite conjugations are not marked for all three of these. So we had the infinitive construct and the infinitive absolute that were not marked for either person, gender, or number. With our participles, they are marked for gender and number, but not person. So you can see in this table here that you've got masculine, plural, masculine, singular, feminine, plural, feminine, singular. So they're marked for gender and number, but not person. So we're going to need to, when we parse them, we're going to need to put nothing in person, and so it's not first, second, or third person. We don't know what that. But we do know if it's masculine, feminine, or if it's singular or plural. So as for the forms here, in the masculine singular, and this is using the verb katal, to kill, we get kotel. In the masculine plural, we get kotelim. kotelim. In our feminine singular, we get two forms. We get kotelet, kotelet, or kotala. This form, the second form, is more of what we would expect. You know, how in our adjectives, when we learn them, the way they form the feminine singulars with the comets hey ending. But actually, this form is more common. So it's what we would call irregular, but more common, this kotelet, kotelet. So we get this segalization that happens. And then for the feminine plural, we get kotelot, kotelot. So just real quick, we've seen the segalization before in our first yod vav, infinitive constructs. If you remember, so like if we take the verb yashav, to sit, dwell, or inhabit, which is a first yod vav verb, then in its infinitive construct form, we get shevet, shevet. So we've seen the segel, segel, tav before, but what is different between this first yod vav infinitive construct and this cal active participle is that you have the third root consonant here. You have all three here. Actually, I guess it's technically the first root consonant, whereas with this, we lose that first yod, don't we? That goes away, and you get the segel, segel, tav that happens. And so that's just a distinction to be aware of. Just again, the participle is marked for gender and number, not person, so we're not going to be parsing that. Notice that in all of these forms, you have a holum over the first root consonant. So that's your main diagnostic, is that holum over the first root consonant. And so it makes that O sound. So, you know, the way I remember is, oh, it's a participle. Oh, it's a participle. So that's what we're going to be looking for. That's our diagnostic. That's our biggest help for spotting a verb that's as a participle, is that holum over the first root consonant. Now, I've already talked about the two forms of the feminine singular. You can have defective spelling, and Futato talks about that on page 129. So what we could have in the text is this. We could get cotail, and see here we get a holum vav after the first root consonant. I guess, I mean, from what Futato is saying, this is what is supposed to be, but actually the holum is defective spelling, whatever. Doesn't matter either way. It is this O sound, either the holum, which is most common, or the holum vav, next after the first root consonant, that is the vowel after the first root consonant. That is our big giveaway. And so we're going to focus on that. I'm gonna harp on that a lot. That's what we're looking for to enable to spot the Hebrew participles. Remember, with our infinitives, our infinitive constructs, we were primarily looking for a shavah under the first root consonant. And with our infinitive absolutes, we are primarily looking for that, you know, the adjectival construction. So I pointed this out, that a couple of the adjectives that you learned had this construction of comets and then holum vav, and that just also happens to be, sorry, that vav should be a little shorter there, the construction for an infinitive absolute. So we're looking for these things in infinitive absolute. But in our Hebrew participles, that holum is our primary diagnostic. Otherwise, we get the tsere here, the segalits in feminine singular, and then these forms you're used to, because these are our noun masculine and feminine plural endings. As far as weak roots are concerned, it's actually not that big of a problem for the weak roots that we've learned so far in the cal active participle. So in our third hey, remember that the third hey of a hey is a vowel, and so it's not a consonant, so it's going to disappear. So we get gole, gole. This is very similar to what we saw in how the third hey shows up in the cal imperfect. Remember, in the 3ms we get yigle, yigle. this is that imperfect ending, but again, we still have the holum over the first root consonant that tells us we're dealing with a cal active participle. In the feminine singular, we get gola. Gola, again, this is the feminine singular ending. The hey of the root is actually left and gone away. So this is the comments hey of the ending. We get golim, golim, and so we get the plural ending that comes along. Remember, it's a vowel. The hirik yod begins the suffix, and so the hey, the third hey of the root, can't do that. You can't have vowel, and so it goes away. And then you get golot, golot. So notice how we still get our holum as our diagnostic for these cal active participles, and that is what we want to look for. Third alephs take a slightly different form. So in our masculine singular, they're the same form we expect, motse, motse. So we have our holum and our tsere in the masculine singular, motse. Motsate, motsate. And so what is different here is we don't get the segel, segel, tav because the aleph quiesces, right? It acts like it's not there, and so you get the vowel changes that happen. So you still have the holum to spot this as a cal active participle, and you get the tav ending of the feminine ending that will help us there. Not saying that it won't take some mental work, but motzim, motzim, standard form, motzaot, standard form. So nothing different there. Our third gutturals also change a little bit. So we get shomea, shomea. Again, this is a furtive patak. Ideally, it should be written as where the patak is over slightly instead of directly under the aleph, and this tells you that you pronounce this consonant, vowel, and then this you could do vowel consonant here. That I haven't figured out how to type that yet. So this is shomea, shomea, and again that's because of the third guttural wants to be introduced by an A-class vowel. In our feminine singular, we get shomaat, shomaat. And so instead of segel, segel, tav, because we have a guttural here, we get patak, patak, tav. This is also shows up in one of the very frequent third guttural participles, which is yodaat, yodaat, which is knowing, knowing. So again, we have a third guttural there, and so it forces the double pataks on us. Still, we have our holum that's helping us out to spot it as an active participle. Shomaim is the same as the strong form, and shomaot, same as the strong form. So those are the only differences. Our first nouns are going to be the same. So like Natan would be notain, notana, notanim, notanot, things like that. So we're good to go. These are the only weak roots that we need to concern ourselves with. They all have the holum, our main diagnostic, in their plural forms. They haven't changed. We're not worried about that. It's just some little trickiness with the masculine singular and the feminine singular. So not too bad in terms of what our first kind of new thing in this semester. Now, how are these used? How is the active participle used? They can express continuous action, like I was running, so I was doing that, or imminent action, I'm about to run. These are both common translations and uses of the participle in the Hebrew Bible. It is active in meaning. That means that if you are reading this, then you're saying I was running, not I was being run. That's not a good example, but we're going to meet later in the semester. We're going to meet the cal passive participle, where one might be receiving the action, and I'll highlight this when we get into the substantive use of the participle. Just a reminder that no tense is communicated here. This is just primarily related to what type of action are we dealing with, and their continuous or imminent action is what we're dealing with. Remember, the time of the action is taken from the context, and so there's going to be other maybe you've got a bait preposition on a infinitive construct to start a sentence. So beda'at. So when, well, we can just assume maybe when he knew. So that would be a time marker that, a bait or a kaf preposition on an infinitive construct starting a phrase is a temporal clause. You might just have like in the morning or in the evening or in those days or something like that. That's where you're getting the time of the action from. Hebrew verbs are more concerned with the type of action. Excuse me. So some examples here. We've got chotev, and so when we come to this word, we see, oh, there's a holum, and it's a holum zere. So this is our standard Cal active participle form from katav, which means to write, and so this would be writing, right? Writing, so continuous action there, writing. Yoda'at, we've got our participle holum that's there to let us know, and then we get the segalization, so this is a feminine singular participle. And this would be knowing. And so this is how I want you to put the meaning in your parsing charts. Because we don't have a person here, so we can't say she or they or anything like that. It's just it's going to connect with whatever the noun is modifying. So in the meaning box of the parsing chart, you would just write writing or knowing. In this phrase, we get hine ani ose. Hine ani ose. And so what we have here is hine, which is behold, and then ani is I, and then we get this participle. See, we have a holum over the first root consonant. We have the segel he, which is a third he, masculine singular participle marking. We've also seen that in the Cal Imperfect 3MS. So this is doing. So this is where Furtado gets into this on the bottom of page 29. This is where we get into imminent action. Tends to be if you have hine, that's about, behold, look, and it tends to be communicating this sort of imminent action. So we might translate this as I am about to do or make, something like that. And the about to accounts for the hine, so you don't have to do behold there in your translation. Another example here, and there's another vocab word here that I didn't want to mess you up, but this is from the end of Deuteronomy where Moses says, hinecha oved. So we have, this is hine with a 2ms pronominal suffix on it. So this tells us the person, this tells us who we're talking about. And then oved, we have our holum zere construction. We've got holum over the first root consonant. Oh, it's a participle. And the zere also lines that up for us. And so we get, behold you perishing. And so we would translate this as you are about to die. Or actually perish would be better, about to perish. Would be a good translation for imminent action. Or it could be you are perishing, something like that, but to pick up that imminent action idea. So those are some examples of how it's used, communicating this continuous or imminent action. Remember, it's active in meaning, and you have to pick up like time from other things. So 3 uses that it has, and these are all adjectival uses. So we've seen all of these in adjectives, although there is a slight difference. So we can use our participles attributively. In this way, they describe a noun in a way that forms a single syntactical unit. So that is, I could have noun plus participle that are together functioning as the subject of a verb, or as the direct object of a verb, or as an indirect object of a verb. So they can do all these things. But they kind of are bound together in this attributive use to function together in the sentence. Like attributive adjectives, attributive participles agree in gender, number, and definiteness with its head noun. Remember, the head noun is the noun it's modifying or telling us more about. And like attributive adjectives, it follows the noun that it modifies. So one of the examples that Furtado gives, Cha'ish hakotev. So we have the man, the writing, the man, the writing. And so this would be an attributive use. So this would be the man who is writing. So it's describing for us the man. Which man? Oh, the man who is writing. And we could then have maybe we could have shalach here, that the king sent the man who is writing somewhere, or the man who is writing read aloud the scroll, or something like that. So these are bound together. They agree in gender and number and definiteness. It's an attributive use of the participle. This is it showing up as a verbal adjective. Another example, ha'am ha'cholachim b'choshech ra'u or gadol. So I'm going to translate this, and you should quickly figure out what it's talking about. So we have ha'am is the people, right? Ha'cholachim we have as the walking. Okay, and I have to fudge a little bit here because am is a masculine singular, but this is masculine plural. But this is an idea that could function singularly or plurally. I made a big stink in the first semester that this is like a corporate idea whereas we would use plural when we're talking about the people. Ha'am can take a singular verb or it can take a plural verb sometime. And so this is the people who are walking, or the people who might say walking, b'choshek, in the darkness. Ra'u, so this is a cow, perfect third common plural from ra'ah. That's why we don't have a third root here. The hay has gone away. So this would be they saw, right? Maybe have seen, they saw. Or gadol. So we get or is a light. Gadol is a great. This is another attributive adjective, so a great light. So this is what we get, and by the way, if you haven't figured it out, this is Isaiah 9:2. The people walking in darkness have seen a great light. So here we have a participle being used. We get the definite article that agrees in definiteness with the noun it modifies, we get the holum there, and then we get the masculine plural ending. So it is a little different because am is being sort of flexed here, and Hebrew tends to do that, but I was excited to actually show you part of scripture. But attributive uses, they're going to agree in gender, number, and definiteness. And that's, remember, the true gender, the true number, and the true definiteness. So, if you've got David, or a proper noun, Saul, the Lord, something like that, that counts as definite. So that's the attributive use. The predicative use of the participle, it makes a statement, it predicates something about a noun. So instead of the attributive use would be the man who is writing, right? It's giving us an attribute for the man. A predicative use would just be the man is writing. So it's forming a sentence. It's predicating something about the man. It's describing him in a way that's trying to add something to him. So they don't form a single syntactical unit. It forms a small sentence in itself. So we've already seen that with adjectives, right? The man is good. The horse is bad. The king is wicked. These are predicative adjectives. And so we can do that as well with participles, with one difference. So they're going to agree in gender and number with the head noun, just like predicative adjectives. They're never going to be definite, just like predicative adjectives. The difference is that it follows the head noun, whereas remember with adjectives, they usually precede the noun they modify. And so we're going to have to pay attention to this. So for example, we have Ha'isha Yoshevet Ba'ir. So this, we get the woman, and then we get a we've got a holum here and a segel, segel tav. This is a feminine singular cal active participle from yashav, to sit or dwell. And so what we get is the woman is sitting. It's forming a sentence. And then we have in the city. Okay. And then another hint, example from scripture. I had to change one word because you haven't learned it yet, but u Shemuel, and Samuel, shokev be'ochel Adonai. So we have and, or more likely in this situation, but Samuel, right? This is the name of Samuel, Shemuel. Shokev. So here we have a masculine singular cal active participle. We go, oh, we got a participle, we got a holum here. It's a holum sere construction. We got a participle, and this is from shakav, to lie down. So is, we could do is, or we could do was. We might get that from the narrative. Was lying down, or laying down. I actually don't remember which one it should be. In, and then ochel Adonai. Ochel is tent of the Lord. So, but Samuel was lying down in the tent of the Lord. So this is a predicative use. It's forming a sentence. It's giving us a sentence about this person. So this here we have Samuel was lying down in the tent of the Lord. Okay, there's also the substantive use of the participle, and where substantive use of adjectives, they come and go. Substantive use of participles are very common. So this is where you're not agreeing with another noun. The participle itself is acting as the noun, and it's sort of taking the identity of this person from this activity. Like I said, it's very common use of the participle. So for example, shomer would be a guarding one, right? Or we might smooth that out to say guardian. Kohen, this is a masculine singular participle. You've learned it as a noun, as a substantive, because it's so common. It actually comes from the verb, which means to do priestly activity. So this is a priesting one, which we then just smooth over as priest. And this bears witness to just how common the substantive use of the participle is. That this, we've got, we've got a holum and then a tsere, and it's a substantive use of a participle. Ha-yoshev, we have the dwelling or inhabiting one, or we might say the inhabitant. So this is how inhabitant, or a lot of times you're going to get the inhabitants of the city, and we're going to talk about how they can go in construct state in a few minutes. But so here another example of excuse me, substantive use of a participle acting as a noun to kind of give you, again, this person is being described by their activity. So we're identifying them as those who inhabit. That's their kind of standout attribute right now. And here is, again, this is from the Psalms, Shomer Yisrael. So this is the same participle we saw up here, but it's spelled defectively. We get this holem vav, but this is, it's in construct, so it ends up being definite. So we get the guardian of Israel. Guardian of Israel. And that's used in the Psalms. So these are just examples of participles being used substantively, and as such, they can take the definite article, as you saw here. They can be in construct state. They can be described by adjectives. They won't be described by another participle, though. That's I would go so far as to say that never happens. But you can have. I guess it would just be rare. Maybe I don't want to say it never happens, just rare. But it's a very common use of the participle, the substantive use. So, okay, so as I've already said, they can be used in the absolute or construct state. In the construct state, the participle tends toward being treated more as a noun. So this is taking from the substantive use of the participle. So here we have shomer chaverit. So we've already seen this is the guardian. Guardian of the covenant, right? So here it's a substantive use of the participle. It's got our markings for masculine singular participle. So our initial sort of rough translation should be guarding, and if we don't if we don't have this connected to another noun, sort of an adjective way, then we want to think about it substantively. So we have guarding one, the covenant. And so then we would smooth out and say the guardian of the covenant, because they are connected by makef. You have that clearly as a construct state. This next one is ochave shemecha. This is again from the Psalms. So ochave, we have, right, our o. So we got a participle that's here, and then we have the masculine plural construct ending on it. And whereas if this were just in the absolute, we would have ochavim, and normally you'd have a shavah here, but because this is a guttural, it doesn't want to take shavah, especially a vocal shavah, so it becomes chatef patak. So we get ochavim, that put in the construct becomes ochave, right? That's what happens when a masculine plural noun goes in the construct. You get ochave, and so this is a masculine plural participle that comes from the verb meaning to love. So that would be loving ones, or we might smooth that out as lovers, something like that. And then it's in construct, so of. Shemecha is the word shem, which means name, with a second masculine singular suffix on it, so it would be your name. And because it has a suffix, it's definite, so it would just be the lovers of your name. And again, that's a phrase from the Psalms. And then we get yoshve ha'ir. So we can parse this and say, oh, I've got a participle, I've got a holum over the first root, and it's a masculine plural participle. So we get from yashav, which means inhabit. So this is inhabitants, or inhabiting ones, inhabitants of the city. And because the city here is the absolute noun, is definite, we get the inhabitants of the city. Okay, so that's examples of them being used in construct state. So we're going to look for vowel reduction potentially to happen in construct state, but in all these things that holum isn't going to reduce. So it's going to be what is our sign, what is our diagnostic for spotting the participle, and then we've got our friendly, neighborly, helpful tzera yod, masculine plural construct ending that's going to help us a lot of times too. So there might be just some sort of contextual, okay, I've got this participle, it's right next to this noun, how are they working together? Then you might opt for like a substantive use in construct with that noun. The participle can also take a suffix, which again leads into its usage as a noun, as a substantive idea that's being used. The suffix is usually in the accusative, meaning it is the object of the verbal idea. It's taking the verbal action of the word. So here we have chol motzei. This is all finding me. And so we might smooth out to say all who find me. So this is an example of what I mean by it's in the accusative. So the me here is the one receiving the action of the finding, as opposed to in a like a nominative sense would be that the me is doing the finding. So that would be like all who I find or something like that. But that's not what we want to do. We want to keep it in the accusative, being the object of the verbal idea. All who find me, I'm receiving that action. Another example here is yodav. So this would be, we've got a suffix here, a 3ms suffix on a participle. So this is a cal active participle. But then we have to figure out, is it masculine singular? What is it? And we would say, yes, it is masculine plural, because this is the how a suffix is formed on a plural noun. Remember that suffixes on plural nouns always have the yod preceding it. So this would be those knowing him. And maybe we'd say those who know him. Something like that. And again, the suffix idea is receiving the action of the verbal idea there. So now again, this would then go on to perhaps form the subject of a verb or the object of a verb. So we're going to see that when we do some of the practice stuff. So that's why I say it's being used as a noun, like it's standing in as, okay, this is then now going to be the subject or the object of something. So it might be the Lord loves those who know him, something like that. But this and then is kind of a noun. Ha'oso, ha'oso. All right, so here we get, we have our definite article, and then we have our participle, holum over the first root consonant. We get a suffix here, a 3ms singular suffix on a third he verb, and that's why the he is not there. So this would be the one doing it, or the one who does it, something like that. This is another example from the text, the one doing it or making it, or the one who makes it, something like that. This is used in Deuteronomy, as is this. Hayoleda, hayoleda. Here we have the definite article, right? We have a holum, which is our diagnostic for a participle. And then we have a feminine singular possessive suffix on it. And so this we have the. Yeled, yeled is to give birth. And then we get the her is the, so we might have the one who gave birth to her, or the one who bore her, or maybe the one who begets her, something like that. And this is also in Deuteronomy. So these are examples of how to kind of pull apart. I've got a participle, it's got a suffix. Remember, the suffix is going to usually be the object of that idea, the object of that action, the one who bore her. So the suffix there, the her here, is receiving the action of the bearing. The 3ms here, the him or the it, is receiving the action of the making or the doing, all that sorts of stuff. So that's what we want to practice. We want to get in that habit of understanding that in that way. All right, participles, a lot of fun, a lot of good stuff. Hopefully you're having fun now. So our vocab is on page 131. We get gibor, gibor, which is a mighty man of valor, that kind of thing. Dor is generation. Choma, choma is a wall. Chema is heat or anger. And ata is noun. And don't get ata mixed up with ata, which is you in the masculine singular, right? So I just want to call out that there's phonetically, they're going to sound the same, ata, ata, but we want to see the I in there. It was, I think, our first week in our first semester, I was showing you the text, and one of you pointed to this word and said, oh, what does that word mean? And I paused for a moment because I had to remember in my brain which one is now and which one is you. And I don't remember which one it was, but this was the reason that there was that confusion. But maybe you can remember the I in now, an aleph you or something like that. Somehow put that together. But sham means there. Again, don't get this mixed up with shame, which means name, right? Sham is there. Asar is to imprison. Chana is a camp. Chara is to be hot or angry. And then lachad is to capture. So now let's go over some practice. I've got 4 practice, so I need to ignore this so that we're not confused. All right, so we get Yadati et ha'anashim hashomeim bidavar Adonai. So here we have Yadati, we have a cow, perfect. First common singular from Yada, right, which means to know. So this is I know, or maybe I knew. Et, definite direct object marker. So the subject of our sentence is ended. We're now starting the predicate. Then we get this phrase, ha'anashim hashomeim. So we get the, this is a participial phrase together. So ha'anashim are the men. The men. Hashomeim, and this is the hearing, right? Right, from shama, which is to hear. We have our diagnostic, our cholam there. It's in the masculine plural, and it also has the definite article. And so it agrees in gender and number and definiteness with the noun it follows. And so this is an attributive use. So this would be the men who are hearing. Then the indirect object here begins with a bait, and when you have shema plus a bait, we actually should change this to obeying. So shema plus bait equals obey. Bi devar Adonai. So this is the word of the Lord, right? Because davar, we've got a shava, which starts it, and that makes us pause and say, okay, am I dealing with an infinitive construct? Nope, because I don't have a cholam there or cholam vav. Am I dealing with a construct? A noun and construct. Yeah, so this is word of. We also have some makef to tell us we're in the construct, and then we have the divine name, which is counted as definite. So this would be, I know the men who are obeying the word of the Lord. Okay, I know the men who are obeying the word of the Lord. So I know. Who do I know? I know the men. Which men? The men who are obeying. What are they obeying? The word of the Lord. So we have this attributive use of our participle here. Hine hu ole el char ha'elohim lizboach sham. So hine is behold. All right, and we might want to kind of hold in our mind the idea that this might be introducing an imminent action phrase. Right? I don't remember if it is yet, but so maybe imminent action. But we have behold, who, so that would be he, right? Who is he? Ole, up. We've got a cholam over the first root, and we have a segol hey. This is how our third hey, masculine, singular, active participles are formed, right? From Allah, to go up. So this is going up. So it agrees in gender and number with the noun that it precedes, but there's no definite. So we're going to have to figure out, is this an attributive use or a predicative use? But at least we've figured out the participle. We get El is to or toward. Har Elohim is the mountain of God. So we get mountain of. We have these makefs, which are, at least for this noun, is telling us that it's in the construct form. So mountain of God. We have this is definite, so the mountain of, we could say of God or the God. Lizvoach. So here we have the preposition lamed, which is to, right? And then we've got a shava under the first root consonant of this triconsonantal word. So that makes us think, am I dealing with a infinitive construct? Well, do I have a cholam or a cholam vav? Yes, I do. And so this is an infinitive construct. From zavach, to sacrifice or slaughter. So we're going to say to sacrifice sham, there. So I think we would put this together with hine. We would say he is about to go up. He is about to go up to the mountain of God to sacrifice there. Okay, does that make sense? So we had this hine, which told us we might have to deal with imminent action. and then we have this person identified, the subject identified, and then we get this participle idea, and so that connects with the hine. So we get he is about to go up, and remember the about to in our translation accounts for the hine. We don't have to say behold, he is about to go up, although you could if you wanted to. So he is about to go up to the mountain of God to sacrifice there. Number 3, we get apenu, apenu, belochde, arenu, excuse me, there are a couple of mispronunciations. So we get charinu. So we have this hirik yod, we've got this nu here. So this hirik yod reminds us of a third hey verb, a verb that was just up in the vocab. So this is to be angry, and this is a cal perfect first common plural, right? So it's we are hot or are angry. And Furtado has a note there on page 131 that there's this Hebrew idiom, hara'af, which is like a burning nose, and that means idiomatically to be angry. And so that's why we have here apenu. So this is our noses, right? Apenu. So we get af plus the first common plural possessive suffix on a plural noun. So this is our noses, right? Our noses are hot, or we are angry. We are angry. Be would be with. And then we get lochade. Again, this is we can spot this already as we got a holum there, so we got a participle, and then it's masculine plural construct ending. This is this vocab word up here to capture. So this would be something like capturing ones, the captors maybe, captors, and then we have arenu. So first of all, this is a construct, so we're going to get of, so the captors of, and then we get arenu. So again, we have a first common plural suffix on a plural word, a plural noun. So this is our, and this is from the word ear, right? When ear, so ear in the singular is this. Remember, it looks like masculine singular, but in fact it's feminine singular. And then when it goes into the plural, it becomes arim. And so then when it goes into the construct, we get array. Okay, array. And then if you add the first common plural ending. So this would be our cities. So we would say we are angry with those who captured our cities, the captors of our cities, something like that. The captors of our cities. Okay, final example here we get Sanei Adonai et Chashofech Dam Ha'adam Ba'adama. Okay, I tried to reach into some of the vocab words we haven't used for a while. So, Sanei is a cal perfect third masculine singular. So don't get mixed up to think this is a holum, because again we have a comments down here. So this is the verb to hate, and so we have the Lord hates. And I know this is strong language. Bear with me. Who does he hate? Ha-shofech. So here we have, no, don't do that. We have a holum and a tsere, right? And so we've got a participle. So we've got a masculine singular cal active participle. This is to shed or to pour out. And so it's a substantive idea. So the one who sheds. And here we have dam ha'adam. Dam is the word for blood. That's been a vocab word for us. Ha'adam is the man or humanity. So we have the blood of the man or the blood of humanity. ba'adama. So ba is our preposition, ba, in. We've got our definite article hiding under there, right? And adama is ground. Or so it might be in or on. And so this would be the Lord hates the one who sheds or pours out the blood of man, the blood of humanity, on the ground. And this is kind of a riff. I had to change some of the words, but on Genesis 9:6. We can come back to that once we know a few more things. But so those are some examples. We got a substantive use of a participle here, substantive use here. We had an imminent action use up here, and then we had an attributive use up there. So just some examples of this in action. We got to go over some vocab that's fun and funky. And yeah, so we'll talk about it on Tuesday.